I have two really exceptional women. They are both leadership from the Headstrong Project, whom I've had the privilege of getting to know more about their work.
So the Headstrong Project provides cost-free, stigma-free, bureaucracy-free mental health treatment for our veterans and their family members.
So Headstrong partners with trauma-informed professionals, therapists, psychiatrists across the country to provide mental health care for veterans and the family members that are connected to their care, as well as active duty service members, National Guard and Reserve.
Lora, I would love to hear from you. You know, this year of the pandemic, you've come on board Headstrong. Have you noticed that there's a greater listening for the mental health subject in your work? Just because of there's a collective understanding now about this kind of work.
Absolutely. I think, within it's making my job absolutely a little bit easier when it comes to awareness and trying to get, awareness for the Headstrong brand out there and that we offer mental health treatment. Everybody, as we've seen, is going through issues right now during the pandemic and feeling the mental strain, and, being in isolation for 18 plus months will make anybody stop and think. So fortunately, we are kind of a digital first organization. So a lot of that we focus on is within social media, a lot of video and content that we produce. And with everybody being at home and all their eyeballs are on the screens, that's where we've been targeting a lot of people, whether it's through social media and through the content that we produce. That's been getting a lot of views, which is great. And that's what people have the time to do right now. So we're just making sure we're in the right place at the right time.
It's just good impact get flowing into that river of understanding now. It's great.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amy, how about you?
You know, it's interesting because we've been talking a lot about the pandemic, but in the military world, we also had the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And, that we saw a huge reaction to that in our veterans and our active duty service members, as well as supporting agencies that were helping with the exfiltration of Afghanistan. So all of the pandemic is like the background, but then there's all these other events on top. There were the racial events, like we can't, forget about that. The election, like there's been a lot of division in our country. And I do think that people are paying more attention to the reactions and more accepting of talking about those things. I think mental health is getting more and more normalized to discuss, unfortunately, because people are hurting.
Yeah. So we've been talking about a behavioral health core, and I would love to hear from you, if it's achievable, it's doable, everyone coming together as a collective, nonprofit, DoD, VA. What would be the most beneficial paradigm shift, from the nonprofit point of view, in terms of funding and just cooperation with others? What would that look like in the nonprofit world of just shifting in this paradigm to work with each, together?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always, it's good to have a little bit of healthy competition, of course, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to do one good things, and that is to save lives. Right. So when it comes to funding, I think where Headstrong lays is that, we love collaboration and we know what our differentiators are. We know what we're good at. Right. And Amy leads that charge. Right. So it's our clinical team. It's the services that we provide and the fact that, we are there in your market area. So as we're, growing and getting national, it's the accessibility that we really want to push forward with Headstrong, and obviously providing the best care possible. So I think that can totally be a collaborative effort across all parties. And I think once everybody kind of gets into their like kind of vertical, of where their expertise lies, I think there is a lot of, I think it's just a jumbled space, right now, because everybody's kind of jumping on board. But it's, if you can identify and then put those nonprofits that are really leading the charge, on those specific verticals, and then be able to have the other nonprofits as well as all the other organizations working with mental health, then I think you could get to a point, where everybody would play nice in the sandbox and everything would be balanced out evenly.
Yeah, it may be just a matter of just shifting the thinking of let's not focus on the money will come. Let's just focus on what you said, the overriding intention, which is to help people. And we're all in this together. We're all rowing in the same boat. Is it essential that we talk about mental fitness with our service members as the extreme crowd there during their active duty? Like, really bring them into a mindset that, things are going to change. Your training has changed you. Your service will change you. And we're here as a country, as a consciousness, to help you be fit all the way through, so that when you come out, you have tools of understanding. How important, from your viewpoint, working with the VA, Amy, is that kind of education for anyone serving?
So I think it's very important. And I think you probably have a hard time finding anyone that disagrees with you on that. I think where the rubber meets the road is like, how do we do it? And so when you go into the military, the training is all about being mission ready, getting you ready to be able to protect our country, fight. And so the ethos that has been created is all in support of that mission. And you can't really blame the DoD, the military, for that, because we do need to train for that, right? But then how do you have the other piece in there? It's really difficult. And so the military actually has done things to start to talk about resilience, and they've had programs where they do understand this. And I think it's gotten better and it's changed, but there's still room to improve and grow. I was just talking to somebody the other day who reached out to us for help, active duty service member, who had been in the military for a good length of time, and, over 15, years. And he said, I used to be able to kind of deal with what I'm doing on the day to day, but I'm realizing now that it's more of a struggle. And so I said, no problem. He has a security clearance. And so he's, that's really difficult, because people feel like if I go to my leadership, if I seek help, there's going to be a ramification for that, a career ramification. Even no matter how much you say, actually, and the government has put in things on security clearances that say if it's job related and if it's trauma related, you don't have to even tell anyone. But when you're active duty and you're seeking help, you're kind of supposed to. So you're in this conundrum, like, what do I do? So he reached out to us, and I said, you don't have to tell anybody that you're seeing us. And he's like, no, I want to do this the right way. If I'm struggling, and, this guy is an officer, and if I'm struggling, I need to let people know, this is a struggle. And that takes such courage and bravery to be able to say, I'm going to do that. And I was just like, okay, I'm really impressed by that, and I totally respect, because it's a difficult thing to have to make that choice. And then on the flip side, once they get to the VA, they've retired, they've discharged, sometimes they've been pushed out because of mental health problems, then they show up at the VA, and the VA is there to kind of pick up the pieces. And part of what you then have to do, and us as well, is you have to kind of start to undo that unrealistic thing that they were taught in the military, which is, if you do everything right, everything's going to be okay. Never leave anybody behind, all this guilt, moral injury, things that people are dealing with. So the idea of having something that brings us all together from a mental health thing, where we can decrease stigma, decrease the red tape, decrease, the problems with people have seeking care, I'm 100% behind. And I do think that, nonprofit, private sector has a place in that, not to diminish all the efforts that the VA and the DoD have done. But I think in order for people to really feel comfortable, sometimes they don't feel comfortable going, especially when they're in the DoD, going to the military for their treatment. Sure. And we can't wait until they get discharged to then take care of their mental health.
Right. That's when we're in crisis, or we're, it's past the point of no return in most cases.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's why I'm here. I look at my career throughout the last 20 years, and I've done some fun things. I cage fighting, and I work in beer and motorcycles, and and it's just those fun things. But this is like, finally I'm at a point in my life where I can say I'm helping save lives.
Yeah.
And nothing else really matters to me.
I'm not here to hold anything tightly. I'm here to stay open, which is, yeah. We all, like we've been talking, you live this human life, you're going to have traumatic experiences, and it's about recognizing them and putting them in their place. The military extreme aspect of this subject matter of traumatic events, it's just such an extreme version of what most will not experience in their lives, though they will have traumatic events. What about that backdrop for you, the complexity of that, sort of extreme view of it? How has that informed your understanding of the nature of trauma?
Well, when you think about an adult population, by the time you're in your 20s, most people have experienced a traumatic event. And when I talk about traumatic event, I'm talking about big trauma, not just like I got fired from my job or I went through a divorce. I'm talking about something either life-threatening, an assault, sexual trauma. Most people have experienced something like that at some point in their life. Only a very few number of people have PTSD. So most people, when they go through those events, they're able to recover. Now, when you think about, now at first it's normal to have all these symptoms. Oh, I can't stop thinking about it, et cetera. But then those will get better, and most people don't go on to have PTSD. When you think about our military population, one of the things that's really different about this era, especially post 9/11, is multiple deployments. Less than 1% of our country serves. So a lot of times they feel very isolated and different and other. And then the deployments themselves, if you think about, like, we've gotten really good at healthcare. So people will survive events that maybe they didn't used to survive. And they come back with injuries, including traumatic brain injury, because of the IEDs that are being used more and more. And those blast injuries, and multiple blast injuries. And we're just starting to really understand the impact. And oftentimes TBI and PTSD go together. And so it is a different beast for people that are deployed. That doesn't mean that everybody that's deployed into combat has PTSD. But the more you're exposed to that, and the more you experience, the more likely it is that you will. And so I think just understanding that, knowing that we're doing the best we can, but when we have these wars, we're sending people into harm's way. There's just no getting around it.
Yeah, it's part of the job. Thank you. I'm so thankful to know your work. And where can people find Headstrong so that they can?
That's where I come in. Absolutely. And whether you're a veteran in need of care, or you're a therapist clinician that's looking to become a part of our team, you can go to getheadstrong.org. You can connect to care right at the top. We make it so simple. We're just a click away. And one of our intake specialists will get back to you immediately. On the clinician side, we do have a nice clinical web form that you can fill out that Amy's team manages, that you can be able to get into our system, so that we can work outreach that way too, if you're interested.
I think that the biggest thing for me is just for people to know that there are treatments that work, that it can get better, that you can live a better life, be more fulfilled if you're struggling, and that we know that therapy does help. And just encouraging people to reach out if they need it.
There you have it. Thank you so much, Laura, Amy. I'll be talking to you, and this has just been a real joy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks again for having us.